Hello crafty friends! My name's Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Owl. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made my first set of cards using the June 2025 SheetLoad of Cards. I hope you'll stick around to see how they were made and get a few tips along the way. Thank you so much for stopping by today. If this is your first time to my channel, I hope that by the end of this video, you'll be inspired to click on that subscribe button below and ring the bell for notifications. If you're already a subscriber and regular viewer, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here again. Yesterday, I debuted the brand new SheetLoad of Cards printable for June 2025. And as you note at the top, there are a few things that make this special. So make sure to check out that video to not only find out what that is, but also how to download the free printable. Today, I'm going to be showing the process of how I made my first set, and also my creative team is going to be joining me in sharing a look at their first sets. After watching my video today, I know that you're going to want to go and see what they made, so make sure to check out this month's playlist, which I will have as an end card at the end of this video and linked in that description box below. I know that each of them would love for you to stop by, see what they created, and leave them some love. And by that, I mean give the video a thumbs up, leave some love in the comments, maybe share your favorites with some of your crafty friends. As I get into today's process video, I will be telling you about the products and tools that I use, but as always, if I ever leave you with any questions, you can leave those down in that comment section below, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! To get started, I chose 4 pieces of pattern paper from Not Too Shabby's Peachy Mint Bliss 6x6 paper pad. Now I did choose 2 pairs that went together the fronts, but because the fronts and backs of each of these each go together as well, that is actually what I'll be using for my final card. When you choose your 4 pieces, do whatever works best for the patterns that you've chosen. I will be cutting all 4 pieces the same way using the cutting guide. You will see here that this does have a small scrap left over, and you could definitely incorporate that into your final cards. When I start my cutting, I want to cut the rows so the different heights, and because that bottom one is only 1/2 inch tall, that is actually the first cut I will make. It's a lot easier to go ahead and make that cut now instead of trying to hold on to a very small piece of pattern paper later. Once that cut is made, I'm going to cut 1.5 inches off the bottom, and then that top stays at 4 inches. Because this does take up all of the height from top to bottom, make sure not to do what I call generous cuts. Cut it right at the measurement or a hair under. Once those cuts are made, I'm going to cut each row down to its final sizes. This first piece I cut to 4¼ inches wide, and I did go ahead and hang on to that scrap in case I want to use it later on the card. The second piece, this is going to end up being pattern paper piece B. I'm going to cut this piece into 4 squares that are 1.5 inches. Now again, just like with the top to bottom, this does take up all of that space, so make sure not to do those generous cuts. And finally, that top piece, pattern paper piece A, is already the size it needs to be at 6 inches wide by 4 inches tall. While I cut the 3 remaining pattern papers in that same exact way, I wanted to take a minute to recognize a few special channel members. In the month of May, I had some of them earn their 1-year membership badge. So I would like to say congratulations and thank you to the following members. Thank you so much for your continued support, as well to all of my channel members. You help to keep me creating here on YouTube and the last 2 years of SheetLoad of Cards free for all subscribers. Once those pattern papers were cut, I moved on to the cardstock, and for CS1 you'll want 4 sheets, and these are going to be cut into your card bases. Now there is quite a bit of scraps left over on this. I just keep mine and use it for stuff like sentiments, but if you don't want all of that left over, if you want to be able to get 2 card bases out of your cardstock sheets, then you could use pre-made card bases like I have here from Hobby Lobby. I do have quite a bit of white cardstock, so I decided to use that for my bases. So I'm going to cut each of these to 7 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Now I could go ahead and fold it here by hand now, but I am going to use a scoring board here in just a little bit. Now, as I'm giving all of these dimensions today and instructions, don't forget that you don't need to remember any of this or write it down. You can check out yesterday's video to get that free printable. It is linked in that description box below. Next, for CS2, you'll need 1 sheet that you're going to cut into 4 pieces that are 4 3/4 inches wide by 2 3/4 inches tall. And this is going to be the mat for your sentiment piece. For my cardstock, I'm using Spearmint from Tailored Expressions, and I start by cutting a piece that is 4 3/4 inches wide and leaving it at that 11 inches tall. Then I'm going to rotate that and cut it into quarters at 2 3/4 inches tall. Now, just like with some of the pattern paper, make sure not to do those generous cuts on this. And finally, you'll want half a sheet of cardstock for CS3, and you'll need 4 pieces that are 4 1/4 by 2 1/4. Now you could definitely use scraps on this if you have some pretty good sized ones. I did just use a half a sheet. I cut it in half and then cut each side into pieces that were that 2 1/4 inches tall. Now, if your sentiment or your focal point is going to look different, just like the printable says, you can change the size and or shape of that to fit your needs. To get a nice crisp fold on my card bases, I did bring in my Scor-Buddy, and I did a few light scores at the 5-inch mark and then folded it in half and burnished that edge with the bone folder. This way your cardstock won't crack, you just get a nice looking crease. I continued scoring and folding all 4 card bases. Let me know in the comment section below if you fold by hand or use a scoring tool like I have here. While I have the Scor-Buddy out, I'm going to go ahead and have it help me put my little strips of pattern paper onto my sentiment piece. I like to use this trick when I have pieces of cardstock and pattern paper that have to be aligned at the edges. Instead of having white space all around the bottom or the outside of this piece, it is flush with the left and right of the cardstock. So putting my cardstock up against the edge of the Scor-Buddy and then placing my pattern paper up against the same ledge is just a helper that I like to use on a lot of my card sets. Once that pattern paper was on CS3, I brought back in my CS2 mats, the spearmint piece, and I added these to the center. Now this is a larger border than I usually have. I think it's 1/4 inch on all edges. Just do your best to get it nice and centered. Next, I want to figure out what I want each of my pattern paper pieces to look like on the finished cards. So like I mentioned before, you could pick 2 patterns where the fronts go together. So on the left, the plaid with those peach polka dots, or like mine here, if the front and back of the double-sided pattern paper go together, you could use those. Let me know down in that comment section below which way you're going to choose to do. Before I start assembly, I do want to just give you a heads up on how all of these pieces go together for the card front. It does kind of look like those are 2 pattern paper strips behind pattern paper A, but it is actually pattern paper A covering up the gap between those 4 pieces placed down. When you place the pattern paper piece B pieces onto your card front, you could definitely eyeball left to right, up to down to try to align these, but what I did is I made a little template here, or a little helper. This is just a scrap of cardstock that is cut to 7 inches wide by 3/4 inches tall. Once again, to help me get everything nice and aligned, I brought in my Scor-Buddy, and now what I'm going to do is add some tape runner, some ATG, to the back of my little gray template piece. I did remove quite a bit of the tack with my fingers because I just want it to sit temporarily in place on my card base. Now I'm going to put this on top of my card base and make sure that the corner of it is down in the bottom corner of my Scor-Buddy, just snug right down in there. Once that is in place, I can add my first 2 pattern paper piece Bs. I put adhesive on the back, and then I'm going to put this snug up against the gray template and down against the ledge of the Scor-Buddy. Now to get the second piece on, I want it at the other end of that gray cardstock, so I added adhesive to the back and flipped my card around. And then again, I added that up against the gray cardstock and down at the bottom of the Scor-Buddy. Now I know that those 2 pieces are exactly 3/4 inch away from the edge, just like the sketch calls for. Now this is totally unnecessary. Like I said, you can definitely eyeball this, but I thought this would be a quick and easy way to get everything nice and aligned. Let me know down in that comment section below if you'll be giving this trick a try. I finished adding the rest of pattern paper piece Bs to the card front using this same technique, and when those were all in place, I brought in pattern paper piece A to get it put onto the card base. Now for this, I did just eyeball centered, but you could definitely make another template like I did for the smaller pieces. Yesterday in the debut video, when I told you what made this edition extra special, I did let you know that next month in July of 2025, I will be back with a very similar layout to this, but it will be for a standard A2 card. So while I do hope that you're going to give this 5x7 sketch a try, I know that they're not for everyone, but if you like the layout, make sure to stay subscribed and come back next month. Before I place the focal layered piece onto the card front, I do want to go ahead and get these prepped with choosing the ephemera and what stamp I'm going to use. So off camera, I pre-chose 4 pieces of the Lovin Gnomes ephemera, and I got out the Sip, Relax, Enjoy stamp set from Not Too Shabby. Originally, I was going to use one of the long, skinnier sentiments, but I discovered that they didn't really fit with the ephemera on the size of cardstock that I cut. So I decided to use the one that looks more like a square and it says a sweet hello. This could definitely be sent for many different occasions. Since the placement of the ephemera and the size will change for each card front, I'm going to do some free range stamping for these, which means instead of using up a MISTI and setting it up once and stamping it 4 times, I will stamp each one individually. For this, I'm using Tailored Expressions Spearmint ink, and below my scrap piece of white cardstock, I do have a foam pad to help me get a nice impression for my sentiment. Luckily, I hit the jackpot and got that sentiment stamped correctly on the first try, which when you're freehand stamping doesn't always happen. Once all of those were stamped, it was time to get the focal pieces put onto their card base. Now for these, whatever pattern paper strip was at the bottom of my sentiment, I put it on the card base that had that for pattern paper piece B. So on this first card, it was that pink gingham. Now the sentiment piece, I just put flat down with ATG, but to add a little dimension, I did add foam tape to the back of the ephemera pieces. To give me a little bit of extra wiggle time to get these straight and aligned just where I want it, I did add some liquid glue on top of the foam tape before putting it onto the card base. I added the rest of those focal points, and while I work on that, I was wondering, how often do you add dimension to your cards? I do usually try to leave mine nice and flat so I don't get charged extra for mailing, but I do always like a little pop of something on a card. Let me know your answer down in that comment section below. Besides a little pop of dimension, I also like to add some sparkle or bling to my cards before I finish them off. For today's set, I brought in some kind of iridescent green half pearls, and I added a trio to the front of each of the cards right around the sentiment. What's your favorite way to add sparkle or shine to your cards? Let me know in the comment section below, and now here's a close-up look at my finished set. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I put together my first set of cards using the June 2025 SheetLoad of Cards printable. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated. Now don't forget to go visit all of the other artists in the hop by using that playlist link here in just a second on screen or in that description box below. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.